بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Top 70 OOPs interview questions and answers. An object-oriented programming system or OOPs is a computer programming model that designs or arranges software for data. بيرتب السوفت وير بتاعك للبيانات or objects rather than functions and logic. OOPs have been an important concept in the realm of programming. If you have an interview lined up that requires core knowledge of OOP, then you are at the right place. This OOP's interview questions article will help you know the different questions you might face in an interview. It will also help you land a job in one of the following job roles: C++ developer, principal software developer, Python, Golang engineer, and more. So brace yourself with an abundance of knowledge coming your way and make sure to utilize it to create a fair grasp on OOP's fundamentals. Basic OOP interview question. What is OOP? ايه هي ال OOP? Programming can use objects to represent real world circumstances thanks to object-oriented programming. المبرمجين يقدروا يستخدموا الأوبجكتس عشان يعبروا بيها عن الحاجات أو الأوبجكتس اللي هي بتعامل أي حاجة في الريل وورلد في العالم الحقيقي as an object. Any entity with states and behaviors is an object, while methods define an item's behaviors. States reflect the characteristics or data of an entity. Objects include students أو workers أو books وغيرهم. By exchanging message, these things communicate with one another. A class is also a template for building an object. A class is required in order to generate objects. مطلوب أعمل class عشان أكريت أو أعمل generate منه لobject. For instance, there needs to be an employee class in order to generate an employee object. لازم يبقى موجود أو هحتاج ل employee class عشان أقدر أجنريت employee object. Differentiate أو difference between procedural programming and OOP. البروسيدورال programming is based on functions مبنية على الفانكشنز. ال OOP object oriented programming is based on real world objects مبنية على الأوبجكتس في العالم الحقيقي. It shows the data to the entire program. ال OOP encapsulate the data. فيها features in encapsulation. It doesn't have a scope for code reuse. ملهاش سكوب عشان أعيد استخدام الكود. ال OOP provides more scope for code reuse. بتسمح لي بالreusability. It follows the concept of top-down programming. الابروتش بتاعها top down. ال OOP العكس. It follow a bottom-up programming paradigm. The nature of the language is complicated. طبيعة language معقدة. ال OOP it is less complicated in nature, so it is easier to modify, extend and maintain. أقل تعقيدا في الطبيعة فأسهل عليك في التعديل والصيانة. Why use OOP؟ ليه بنستخدم ال OOP؟ Programming with OOP lets you package together data states and functionality to change those data states while keeping the specifics secret. Consider the analogy of a car. You can only see the steering of the car while driving. The circuitry behind it is hidden from you. As a result, OOP design produce flexible, modular, and abstract code. Because of this, it is very helpful for developing larger programs using classes and objects. You may include OOP into your code. The objects you construct will have the states and capabilities of the class to which they belong. الكلاس اللي بينتموا ليه. What are the basic concept of OOP؟ هما 4 concept لل OOP: الانهيرتنس، البوليمورفيزم، الابستراكشن، والانكابسوليشن. What is encapsulation؟ ايه هو الانكابسوليشن؟ Encapsulation is also a part of the OOP's concept. It refers to the bundling of data with the methods. Bundling of data يعني تجميع البيانات with the methods that operate on that data. It also helps to restrict any direct access to some of an object components. احنا قلنا معنى الانكابسوليشن ان هي زي كبسولة بتقفل على نفسها السكوب اللي هي موجودة فيه. يبقى عندي داتا معينة متغلفة في كبسولة معينة. What is abstraction؟ يعني ايه abstraction؟ In OOP's concept to build the structure of real-world object, it shows only essential attributes. بتوريك ال attributes الضرورية and hides unnecessary information. وبتخفي المعلومات غير المهمة أو غير الضرورية from the outside. The main focus of abstraction is to hide unnecessary details. التركيز الرئيسي للابستراكشن ان هو يخفي التفاصيل غير الضرورية from the users عن اليوزرز. It is one of the most important concepts of OOP. واحد من أهم المفاهيم في الأوبجكت أورينتد. What is method overloading؟ إيه هي الميثود overloading؟ There is a concept where two or more methods can have the same name. عندي method أو أكتر ليهم نفس الاسم. But they should have different parameters. ينبغي إن هما يبقى ليهم البارامترز مختلفة. Different numbers of parameters، عدد البارامترز مختلف. و different types أو التايبس مختلف. يعني واحد int، واحد double، واحد float، وهكذا. Or both أو الاتنين. These methods are known as overloaded methods. معروفين بالoverloading. And this feature is called method overloading. What is method overriding? Method overriding is a concept of object-oriented programming. It is a language feature that allows a subclass or a child class to provide a specific implementation of a method which is already provided by one of its superclass or parent classes. عندي superclass في method وعملت subclass بيextend من السوبر كلاس ده، فهيخليني override على ممكن override على نفس الميثود بنفس الاسم بنفس الريتيرن تايب، بس هعمل implementation مختلف. Types of inheritance in OOPs. أنواع الانهيرتنس عندي single inheritance، multiple inheritance، multi-level inheritance، multi-path inheritance، hierarchical inheritance و hybrid inheritance. What are the main features of OOP? The main features of OOP are given as follows. In OOP you combine the code into one unit, وحدة واحدة. So you can specify the parameters of each piece of data. This process of wrapping up data into a single unit is called encapsulation. بتسمى encapsulation، انك تحط الداتا بتاعتك كوحدة واحدة. By using classes، عن طريق استخدام الكلاسز you can generalize your object types and make your application easier to use. This is termed as an abstraction. The ability for a class to inherit characteristics and behaviors from another class allows for more code reuse. بيسمح لي بإعادة استخدام الكود. Polymorphism allows for creation of several objects from a single adaptable class of code. Is it possible to call the base class method without creating an instance؟ هل من الممكن ان انا انادي على البيس كلاس ميثود من غير ما كريت انستنس؟ هينفع بس في حالات معينة. Yes, we can possibly call the base class method without creating an instance in the following three cases. لو الميثود دي static. حلو. لو calling the inherited method inside a derived class، جوه كلاس مشتق يعني بيextend من كلاس تاني. Calling the method using the base keyword from the subclass. The most popular case is that of the static methods. أكتر طريقة مشهورة هي إن الميثود تبقى static. في الحالة دي ممكن أنادي على الميثود دي عن طريق اسم الكلاس دوت الميثود من غير ما أكريت object من الكلاس ده. What are the limitations of OOP? Following are some of the common limitations of object-oriented programming. Size exceeds that of the programs. It took a lot of work to make and it runs more slowly than other programs. It is inappropriate for certain types of issues. It takes some getting used to. What are constructors? Constructor has the same name as the class، بيحمل نفس اسم الكلاس. A constructor is also a special kind of method. It is used to يستخدم عشان initialize الobject من الكلاس. Type of constructor، أنواع الكونستراكتور عندي private constructor والdefault constructor والcopy constructor والstatic constructor والparameterized constructor. What is the difference between class and a structure? A class is basically a user-defined blueprint from which objects are created. هو عبارة عن blueprint يعني مخطط أو نموذج للobjects اللي هكريته. It consists of methods، بيتكون من methods أو set of instructions that are performed on the objects اللي هيحصل لها تنفيذ على الobject. The structure is also user-defined collection of variables. Structure are also different data types. A user-defined class service layout or blueprint from which objects can be built. In essence, a class is made up of fields known as attributes and methods known as member functions that define actions. A structure is a grouping of variables، عبارة عن مجموعة من variables أو group of various data kinds under one heading، تحت head واحدة. What are the access modifiers? Access modifiers or access specifiers are the keywords in object-oriented language. It helps to set the accessibility of classes أو methods and other members. هي بتساعدك في إن أنت تست الوصول للممبرز بتوعك عن طريق ان هي تبقى برايفت او public او protected، ودي من اشهر الاكسس modifier. What languages come under the OOP's concept? Simula is known as the first object-oriented programming language. The most popular OOP language are Java, JavaScript, Python, C++, Visual Basic, .NET, Ruby, Scala, PHP. What is inheritance? Whenever one class is derived from another, it is referred to as inheritance. The child class will inherit all of the parent class public and protected properties and methods. هيورث كل ال properties والmethods الاكسس modifier بتاعهم public أو protected. Apart from the attributes and methods inherited from the parent class, it can also have its own additional set of features. The extend keyword، بستخدم كلمة extend، is used to specify an inherited class، بتستخدم عشان تحدد الكلاس اللي حصل له inheritance. If you derive a class from another class that is known as inheritance, the child class will inherit all the public and protected properties and methods from the parent class. The child class can also have its own properties and methods. An inherited class is defined by using the extend keyword. عندي class child extend من super class أو parent class، فهو بياخد كل properties بتاعته والmethods بتاعته public protected، والchild class ده ينفع يبقى ليه attributes الخاصة بيه أو methods الخاصة بيه. multiple inheritance multi level inheritance. multiple inheritance if a class inherit more than one base class. That time we use multiple inheritance. في الحالة دي multiple inheritance. طيب المالتي ليفل انهيرتنس لو كلاس بينهرت من كلاس تاني والكلاس التاني ده بينهرت من كلاس تاني، تمام؟ ده المالتي ليفل انهيرتنس. طيب اكزامبل على المالتيبل انهيرتنس: a class explaining a child that child class inherit from two base classes which are mother and father. عندي child class بينهرت من المother والfather، في الحالة دي اسمه multiple inheritance. طيب example على multi level inheritance: a class called as sport bike. عندي class اسمه sport bike which is inherited from a base class called bike، بينهرت من class اسمه bike، وكلاس البايك ده بينهرت اصلا من سوبر كلاس تاني اسمه vehicle. ده مالتي ليفل انهيرت. What is hyper inheritance? The type of inheritance formed by the combination، عبارة عن خليط من different types of inheritance like single, multiple. It is classified as hyper inheritance. هو خليط من السنجل والمالتيبل والمالتي ليفل inheritance. حلو. طيب what is hierarchical inheritance? In the case of hierarchical inheritance, multiple subclasses inherit from a parent class. Hierarchical inheritance يعني عندي multiple subclasses، كذا subclass بينهرت من parent class، ده اسمه ال hierarchical inheritance. is a type of inheritance in which multiple classes are descended from a single parent or base class، من single class parent class واحد. For example على سبيل المثال the fruit class can have apple ومانجو وبنانا وتشيري وغيرهم as its subclasses. ده ال hierarchical inheritance. What are the limitations of inheritance? It increases the execution time and effort. بتزود الوقت الexecution والمجهود. It also requires jumping back and forth between different classes. تتنقل ما بين classes كتير. The parent class and the child class are always tightly coupled. البيرنت والchild دايما tightly coupled يعني مقترنين ببعض. Afford modifications in the program would require a change for the parent and the child classes. لو في change هتغيره في البيرنت كلاس هيأثر على البيرنت والتشايلد فتغير فيهم هما الاثنين. inheritance لو هما tightly coupled يعني. inheritance requires careful implementation otherwise it would lead to incorrect result. لازم تنفذه بحرص غير كده هيؤدي لنتائج مش صحيحة. What is a super class? A super class is a class from which a subclass or a child class is derived. Base class and parent class are other names for a super class. For example, if a student is a class derived from the person. لو عندي student class مشتق من البيرسون. Then the person class will referred to as a super class. في الحالة دي البيرسون هيبقى هو ايه؟ هيبقى هو السوبر كلاس بتاعي. A super class or base class is also a class that works as a parent to some other classes. اللي هو بيشتغل كبيرنت لبقية الكلاسز أو للسب كلاسز. For example على سبيل المثال ال vehicle class is a super class for a bike. What is a subclass? ايه هو subclass? A class that derives from another class is referred to as subclass. A subclass inherits the properties of its ancestors or parent classes. For example, class bike is a subclass or derivative of the vehicle class. هو class مشتق من vehicle class. vehicle هو السوبر والبايك هو السب class. What is polymorphism? يعني ايه polymorphism? Polymorphism is one of the most used and core concepts in OOP language. It explains the concept of different classes can be used with with the same interface. Each of these classes can have its own implementation of the interface. What is static polymorphism? أنواع البوليمورفيزم static وديناميك. الستاتيك اللي هو الكومبايل تايم والديناميك اللي هو الران تايم. طيب what is static polymorphism? Static polymorphism determines which method to call. بيحدد أنهي method هيحصل لها calling هتستدعى at compile time أثناء الcompile time. For the same trigger with static polymorphism, the object might respond differently. Function, constructor, and operator overloading are examples of static polymorphism. أمثلة على البوليمورفيزم الكونستراكتور والأوبريتور overloading. طيب what is dynamic polymorphism? Dynamic polymorphism زي ما قلنا is a method or a process that handles a call to an overridden method during runtime rather than at compile time. It is also referred to as dynamic method dispatch or runtime polymorphism using method overriding. We can create dynamic polymorphism. An example of runtime polymorphism is method overriding. وأنا بعمل override على الميثود ده بيتحدد أثناء عملية الران بيشوف تسلسل الكلاسز وهينادي على مين قبل مين، فده بيتم اثناء الران تايم بعد ما بعمل ران للابلكيشن. أو software. What is operator overloading? The user-defined data type is given special meaning by the operator using operator overloading. It is a compile-time polymorphism. Differentiate between overloading and overriding. When two or more methods in the same class have the same name. لو عندي method أو أكتر من method في نفس الكلاس بنفس الاسم بس parameters are different مختلفين. This is referred to as overloading. ده overloading. The technique of using the same method signature, name, and parameters in both the superclass and the child class is known as overriding. Overloading if two or more methods have the same name but they should have different parameters or signature known as overloading. We solve it during compile time. هنا الناحية التانية overriding child class inherit method with the same parameters and signature which are present in the base class الموجودة أصلا في base class is known as overriding. Solve it during run time. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is used to wrap the data and the code which works in a single unit together. إن هما يشتغلوا في وحدة واحدة مع بعض. Example: encapsulation allows data hiding as the data specified in one class is hidden from other classes. الداتا اللي بتتحط في class تبقى hidden عن بقية classes. What is the difference between public, private, and protected access modifier? هنا جدول مقارنة ما بين public والprivate والprotected. أول حاجة accessibility from private class يعني الكلاس اللي هيextend من الكلاس ده من كلاس معين يعني أو accessibility from كاتب نفس الاتنين private class. لا يبقى أول واحدة same class مش private class. تاني واحدة هي private class يعني الكلاس اللي هيشتق من السوبر كلاس. وتالت واحدة accessibility from any place من أي مكان. البابليك من نفس الكلاس يس من البرايفت يس من أي مكان يس. البرايفت من نفس الكلاس يس من الكلاس المشتق منه نو من أي مكان نو. البروتكتد من نفس الكلاس يس من الكلاس اللي هيشتق منه يس من أي مكان نو. What is data abstraction? Data abstraction is one of the most important features of OOP. It only allows important information to be displayed. It helps to hide the implementation details. For example, while using a mobile, you know how can you message or call someone. انت لما معاك موبايل بتقدر تبعت رسالة لأي حد أو تكلم أي حد. But you don't know how it actually happens. بس انت متعرفش بالظبط ايه اللي حصل عشان المكالمة دي تتم او عشان الرسالة دي تتبعت للشخص الفلاني. ايه الديتيلز ورا الكلام ده اللي اتعملت انت متعرفش عنه حاجة. هو ده الداتا abstraction. This is data abstraction as the implementation details تفاصيل implementation are hidden from the user مخفية عن اليوزر. How to achieve data abstraction? Data abstraction can be achieved using two ways, abstract class والabstract method. What is an abstract class? An abstract class is also a class which consists of abstract method. So, what is an abstract method? These methods are basically declared بعرف method but not defined ما بعملهاش implementation. And if these methods need to be used later ولو عايز استخدمها مؤخرا in some subclasses في بعض subclasses that time those methods في الوقت ده methods دي have to be exclusively defined in the subclass. لازم أعمل لها implementation. Differentiate between abstraction and encapsulation. الابستراكشن solves the problem at the design level. encapsulation solves the problem at the implementation level. Abstraction helps to hide implementation details. Encapsulation, it wraps the code and data together into a single unit and helps to hide it from the world. What are virtual functions? ايه هي virtual function? Are also part of the functions which are present in the parent class. عبارة عن جزء من الفانكشنز اللي موجودة في البيرنت كلاس and they are overridden فحصل لها override by عن طريق السب كلاس. These functions help to achieve runtime polymorphism. بتساعدني في تحقيق الران polymorphism. يبقى الفيرتشوال فانكشن هي فانكشن حصل لها overridden من السب كلاس عن طريق ان هي موجودة في السوبر كلاس. What is a destructor؟ ايه هو الديستراكتور؟ الديستراكتور is a method that is called automatically بيحصل لها calling بشكل تلقائي أول لما الأوبجكت بيحصل له destroy في الميموري. The destructor also recovers the heap space which was allocated to the destroyed object. It also starts closing the files and database connection of the object. الديستراكتور بيسترجع المساحة اللي اتخزنت في الهيب ميموري للأوبجكت اللي أنا خزنته ده. بعد ما بيحصل ديستروي للأوبجكت ده الديستراكتور بيرجع المساحة اللي الأوبجكت ده كان مخزنها في الميموري. What is a copy constructor؟ By copying the members of an existing object بتستنسخ نسخة من من object already موجود بتاخد منه copy. The copy constructor initializes the members of a newly formed object. The argument for the copy constructor is a reference to an object of the same class. Programmers have the option of directly defining the copy constructor. The compiler defines the copy constructor if the programmer doesn't. What is the use of finalize؟ ايه استخدام finalize؟ Finalize is used to free the unmanaged resources and also help to clean before garbage collection. It performs memory management tasks. بتساعد في عملية الكلين قبل الجاربج collection. فهي بتفري المساحة في الميموري للحاجات اللي ما بقاش ليها استخدام. What is garbage collection؟ ايه هي garbage collection؟ Programming language like C# and Java include garbage collection as a memory recovery mechanism. الميكانيزم بتاع الميموري recovery. A programming language that supports garbage collection contains one or more garbage collection engines محركين that automatically release memory space that has been reserved for things the application is no longer using. يعني تشوف ايه الحاجات اللي في الابليكيشن بتاعك ما بقاش ليها استخدام و بتفضي المساحة بتاعتها من الميموري بشكل تلقائي. What is a final variable؟ A final variable can only receive one explicit initialization. A reference variable that has been marked as final is unchangeable يعني ما ينفعش تغير قيمته in its object reference. The data included in the object however can be modified as a result while the object's state can be altered, its reference cannot. What is an exception? Exception is a kind of message that interrupts and comes up when there is an issue. هي message بتظهر لما بيبقى في issue مشكلة with the normal execution of program مع ال execution الطبيعي للبروجرام. Exceptions provide an error and transfer it to the exception handler to resolve it. ال exceptions بتprovide الايرور وبتترانسفيره للاكسبشن هاندلر عشان يحل. The state of the program is saved as soon as the exception is raised. What is exception handling? Exception handling in object-oriented programming is the most important concept. It is used to manage errors. An exception handler help to throw errors and then catch the error in order to solve them. بيساعدك في انك تثرو exception message عشان تعرف الايرور اللي راجع لك ايه وتقدر تحاول عن طريق التراي والكاتش بلوك. What is the difference between error and exception؟ ايه الفرق ما بين الايرور والاكسبشن؟ الايرور basically refer the problems and those problems shouldn't be encountered by application. هي مشكلة انت مش موجودة جوه الابلكيشن بتاعك. الايرور ده حاجة بتحصل اول اثناء مثلا عملية الران تايم، بيحصل لك ايرور غير متوقع انت مش عارفه. انما الاكسبشن are basically conditions that an application might try to catch. انما الاكسبشن انت مثلا بتبقى عارف ان هيحصل مشكلة معينة، فبتقول له تراي حاول تعمل الكود بتاعك وارمي لي اكسبشن في حالة ان ايه عارف ان ممكن يحصل مشكلة في الحتة دي. كنا ضربنا مثال على الاسم على الزيرو، ده ابسط مثال. ان انت مثلا عارف ان لو اليوزر قسم على الزيرو هيحصل ايرور، ففي الحالة دي بتعمل تراي وكاتش بلوك. في الكاتش بلوك تمام بترمي اكسبشن تمام ان لو اليوزر مسج مثلا هتعرض مسج ان اليوزر ما ينفعش يقسم على زيرو عشان الابلكيشن ما يحصلوش كراش. What is a try catch block؟ ايه هو try catch block؟ The terms try and catch describe بتوصف how to handle exception، ازاي تهندل exception brought on by coding or data mistakes while a program is running. The section of code where exceptions occur is called a try block. Exceptions from try blocks are caught and handled in a catch block. What is a finally block؟ Finally designates the section of code that works with the try keyword. It specifies code that is always executed before the method is finished. دايما بيحصل له execution قبل ما الميثود تخلص immediately behind the try and any catch block regardless of whether an exception is thrown or caught. The final block is always executed. انت حطيت تراي وكاتش بلوك وتحتيهم حطيت فاينلي وكتبت جوه البلوك بتاعها كود معين، هو هيتنفذ سواء دخل في التراي او في الكاتش، هينفذ دايما الكود اللي مكتوب في البلوك بتاع الفاينل. Can you call the base class method without creating an instance؟ قلنا ايوه في حالة ان هي static. Yes, you are allowed to call base class without instantiating it, but there are some conditions that are applicable. If the method is static, the base class is inherited by some other subclasses. What is the difference between object-oriented programming and structural and SOP? The key distinction between structured and object-oriented programming is that the former allows for the creation of programs using a collection of modules or functions. allows for the constructions of programs using a collection of objects and their interactions. ال OOP involves concept of object and classes. Everything is considered as an object which has specific properties ليه الخصائص بتاعته و behaviors خاصة بيه which are represented in a class. OOP provides encapsulation and abstraction in the code. Example Java programming language. The structure oriented programming involves the concept of function and structures. Everything is considered functionality. كل شيء بيعتبر عبارة عن functionality and structures represented using functions. بيعبر عنها عن طريق functions. Example is C programming language. What is the difference between class and object? Any real world entity is called an object. أي حاجة في العالم الحقيقي بعتبرها عبارة عن object. The object has specific properties and behaviors, and the similar type of objects having similar features and behaviors are grouped as a class. Hence, class is a blueprint of objects, and an object is an instance of a class. هنا example an animal is a class والcat والdog وغيرهم are عبارة عن objects with common properties like مع صفات أو خصائص متشابهة زي النيم والتايب and common behaviors وسلوك متشابه زي السبيكينج والووكينج والرانينج وغيرهم. الموبايل عبارة عن كلاس ونوكيا وموتو وايفون وغيرهم عبارة عن objects من الكلاس ده with common properties زي الموديل number والcolor وغيرهم and common behavior like audio calling, video calling, music. What are access specifier قلناها قبل كده are keywords in any programming language used to specify the class methods, interfaces, and variables behavior concerning its accessibility. The access specifier in C++ are public, private, and protected. Can you create an instance of an abstract class? لا طبعا. An instance of abstract class cannot be created. To implement the abstract class, abstract methods, the abstract class should be extended. المفروض تعمل له extend أو inherit منه عن طريق class تاني. And the object of the implementation class can be created. OOP's interview questions for experienced. ايه هو الانترفيس؟ Interface is a user defined data type and is a collection of abstract methods. A class implements an interface, thereby inheriting the abstract method of the interface. A class describes an object's attribute and behaviors, and an interface contains behaviors that a class implements. The class represents how, and the interface represents what. What are pure virtual function? Pure virtual function methods is a function whose implementation are not provided in the base class and only a declaration is provided. عامل declaration بس معرف الميثود بدون تنفيذ. The pure virtual function can have its implementation code in the derived class. Otherwise, the derived class will also be considered an abstract class. The class containing pure virtual functions is abstract. Differentiate between a class والمethod. A class is a blueprint of objects. هو عبارة عن مخطط للobject أو نموذج للobjects and is consists of the properties and behaviors of objects. بيتكون من الخصائص والسلوك للأوبجكتس. الميثودز are programming constructors that perform specific tasks أو behavior. differentiate between الابستراكت كلاس and الانترفيس. عملنا فيديو في البلاي ليست بتاعت اسمها comparisons فيها مقارنة ما بين الابستراكت كلاس والانترفيس. An interface can have only abstract methods but an abstract class can have abstract and non-abstract methods. الانترفيس لازم يبقى جواه abstract methods بس، انما الابستراكت كلاس ممكن يبقى فيه methods عادية و methods abstract. The interface should be used if just the requirement specification is known and nothing about implementation. If the implementation is known but partially, then an abstract class should be used. يبقى الانترفيس المفروض استخدمه لو requirement specification معروفة and nothing about implementation. حلو. لو الامبلمنتيشن معروف بس جزئيا في الحالة دي هستخدم الابستراكت كلاس. if the implementation is known completely لو معروف تماما الامبلمنتيشن then a concrete class should be used. هستخدم الconcrete class. What are the limitations of object-oriented programming? Larger program size. Program can become lengthy if written using OOP's concept compared to procedure-oriented programming. Slower execution as the number of lines of code to be executed is more. Comparatively, the execution time is also more. Not suitable for all types of problem. Testing time also higher for object-oriented programming solutions. What are the characteristics of an abstract class? A class having at least one pure virtual function is called an abstract class. Abstract class cannot have objects created. An abstract class cannot be instantiated, but object reference can be created. The abstract class can have non-abstract function and the pure virtual function also. The pure virtual function can have its implementation code in the derived class. Otherwise, the derived class will also be considered an abstract class. What is constructor chaining? Constructor chaining is a method to call one constructor from another concerning a current object reference. It can be done in two ways. Using the this keyword, the reference can be made to the constructor in the current class. To call the constructor from the base class, super keyword will be used. What is coupling in OOP and why is it helpful? The degree of dependency درجة الاعتمادية between the components ما بين components is called coupling. اسمها coupling. أنواع coupling عندي tightly coupling if the dependency between component is high. لو الاعتمادية ما بين components عالية. These components are called اسمها tightly coupled. حلو. Below three classes are highly dependent on each other. معتمدين على بعض. Hence they are tightly coupled. عندي هنا class B جواها static integer A بيساوي Q dot G. Q ده class أصلي اسمه Q جواه حرف ال J بيساوي R dot method وال R ده عبارة عن أصلا class جواه ال method دي. فالتلاتة معتمدين على بعض. أي change في أي كلاس ممكن يمباكت على الكلاس التاني. تاني نوع اللوز coupling. If the dependency between components is low لو الاعتمادية ما بين الكومبوننتس قليلة في الحالة دي اسمها loose coupling. Loose coupling is preferred طبعا مفضلة because the following reason. It increases the maintainability of code بتزود قابلية صيانة الكود و provide reusability of code بتمنحك إعادة استخدام الكود. Name the operators that cannot be overloaded. ايه هي الاوبريتورز اللي ما ينفعش اعمل لها overload؟ all the operator except the plus operator cannot be overloaded. كل الاوبريتورز ما عدا البلس اقدر cannot be ما اقدرش اعمل لها overloaded. What is cohesion in OOP? The modules having well-defined and specific functionality are called cohesion. Advantage, it improves the maintainability and reusability of the code. What are the level of data abstraction? Highlighting the set of services by hiding internal implementation details is called abstraction. By using abstract class and interface, we can implement abstraction. What are the types of variables in OOP? The variables are basic unit to store data in RAM for Java programs. هي وحدات بخزنها في بخزن بيها البيانات بتاعتي في الرام بتاعت الابليكيشن. حلو. for Java program لبرامج الجافا. Variables should be declared before using them in Java programming. Variable initialization can be static or dynamic. The syntax for variable declaration and static initialization is أنواع الفاريبلز عندي primitive و instance و static و local. primitive variables it is used to represent primitive values زي integer و float وغيرهم. Reference variables it is used to refer to objects in Java. Instance variables هي variables whose value varied from object to object or instance variables. For every object, a separate copy of the instance variable is created. Instance variables are declared within the class and outside any method block constructor. In the static variable, for static variable, a single copy of the variable is created and that copy is shared between every class object. The static variable is created during class loading and destroyed at class unloading. The static variables can be accessed directly from the static and instance area. We are not required to perform initialization explicitly for static variables, and Java Virtual Machine will provide default values. Local variables declared inside a method or block or constructor are local variables. Hence, the scope of local variables is the same as the block scope in which we declare that variable. The Java Virtual Machine doesn't provide default values, and before using that variables, the initialization should be performed explicitly. What do you understand by garbage collection in OOP world? Garbage collection is a memory recovery technique included in programming language زي C# and Java. Enable the programming language contain one or more garbage collectors that automatically بشكل تلقائي free up memory space بتفضي مساحة الميموري allocated to objects اللي موجودة للobjects that are no longer needed ما بقاش ليها احتياج عن by the program. Is it possible to run Java application without implementing the OOP's concept? No, since Java programmers are founded on the concept of object-oriented programming models or OOP. A Java application cannot be implemented without it in Java based on OOP. What is the output of the below code? عندي class اسمه person جواه method اسمها show بتطبع this is a person و class teacher بيextend من person بيطبع this is a teacher، وعندي class math teacher بيextend من person. I override على show ويقول أنا this is a math. المين method خد object من person سواه بالmath teacher وقال لي اطبع لي empty.show. طيب هنخش على الماث تيتشر. الشو بتاعتها this is a math teacher، فهيطبع this is a math teacher. find the output of the below code. عندي كلاس اسمه arithmetic public final double var 5 كلاس دي arith بيكستند من arithmetic، وفي الفاريبل ب10، وادفانس arithmetic بيكستند من deep، وخلى دبل سيكريت ب20. بعد كده نادى على arithmetic، ونادى خد اوبجكت من arithmetic وقال له بيساوي نيو ادفانسد arithmetic، ونادى على arithmetic دوت الفار. هيطبع الخمسة عشان الادفانسد arithmetic بيكستند من الديب، والديب بيكستند من الاريثماتيك. بعد كده predict the output of the following. عندي كلاس اسمه parent جواه void display system.out.println البيرنت، وكلاس اسمه child بيكستند من البيرنت جواه display كاتب child، وقال لي خد object من البيرنت سماه نود وقال equal new child، وبعد كده نادى على node دوت show. Running this code will generate a compile error as a subclass function overriding a superclass function cannot be given more restrictive access. ودوت شو الميثود اللي هنا اسمها display اصلا مش شو. implement a singleton class in Java. قلنا السؤال ده كتير قبل كده. public class singleton، ودي الانستنس عبارة عن static عشان استخدمها جوه static method، وده الكونستراكتور لازم يبقى private، ودي الميثود اللي بترجع لي الانستنس public static singleton get instance. بتشيك اول مرة لو بنال. حلو. ومستخدم هنا السينكرونايزد، قلنا استخدام السينكرونايزد دي عشان لو شغالة في environment فيها أكتر من thread. وقال singleton dot class if instance equal null خد لي new instance، غير كده هيرجع لك الانستنس اللي موجودة. ده implement stack code، ده الكود بتاعه. وهنا implement abstract class in C# with abstract method، بكريت abstract class عادي جواه abstract method ونستخدمه بس. وده كان أسئلة ال OOP في الانترفيو questions ممكن نسأل.